Well, it's 3:30. Let's call the meeting to order. Wendy, you do the roll call?
North.
Here.
Heckman.
Here.
Perplex.
Here.
Just a reminder to silence the cell phones. And approval of the agenda. Get an approval?
I'll move to approve the agenda for February 3rd, 2025. I'll second.
I got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And approval of minutes from January 27. Can I get approval for those?
I move to approve the minutes of the January 27th meeting, both the hearing and the meeting.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes of January 27th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unfinished business. Appeal of 6545 Clearbrook. I guess discussion?
I don't have any discussion. I think we need to reopen the public hearing.
Okay. We need a roll call vote to reopen the hearing.
Perplex.
Yes.
Heckman.
Yes.
North.
Yes.
Okay, it's reopened.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
I'd like to submit some new information that came in after we had the hearing. That is from Renee Wells, the zoning administrator for Saugatuck Township. Figured you guys were close enough, it just shows the easement. And the comments from the zoning administrator, Renee Wells, regarding when the time is right.
Probably should have waited till the fire code official's turn. Does the applicant have a copy of this?
No, we were just doing it now. It just, yeah, I was gonna wait for the presentation. I just wanted to hand you a copy and I'm gonna
Okay.
hand him a copy.
Thank you.
Sure, you bet.
Mr. Skippers?
Thank you. My voice is still squeaky.
Wow.
I gave Mr. Mantelis a copy of my notes,
Okay.
and I also gave him a site plan that I'll discuss in a minute. You know, what we're appealing is the refusal of the fire district to allow existing access to continue serving an existing parcel if the old house on the property is replaced with a new house. The Lambs can continue occupying the existing parcel with no further approval, but it's unsafe. It's unsafe for handicapped persons and their family due to its cramped size, non-fire retardant materials, and not being up to current code, lack of sprinkling. And all they want to do is replace that fire trap with a handicapped accessible house of fire retardant materials with sprinkling and up to current building codes, a much safer home for their family. And of course, the code wants them to upgrade their driveway to current fire codes if they do that, but they can't do that. Their architect has tried a number of different layouts and could not come up with one that met the requirements for IFC turnaround and the township requirements while still leaving feasible building footprint for an ADA compliant residence and parking area. The report submitted by the fire department, the fire district, for this meeting identifies a slanted turnaround plan as a reasonable accommodation on the last page of its report. That drawing was an off-the-cuff, last-ditch attempt by the Lambs architect to come up with a workable plan. After Mr. Mantelis indicated it may work, the architect went back to see if he could work the required parking with handicap ramps in the final layout of the residence into that turnaround, and he could not. The parking spaces that are required would encroach into the turnaround substantially. He's almost blocking it entirely. Okay, if they cannot install an IFC compliant turnaround, they would not be able to widen the driveway throughout the 750 feet of easement providing access, and couldn't replace the driveway with one sufficient to meet the 80,000-pound weight bearing limit. Simple reason is, we can only improve the easement as reasonable or as necessary. If fire trucks can't use it anyway, the heavy fire trucks can't use it anyway, I'm not gonna be able to convince a court that widening it and improving the weight limit to carry fire trucks is necessary, because they can't turn around anyway. It's not even clear if we'd be able to do those improvements if we could do a turnaround. We'd still have to convince a court that what has worked for decades, I'm told 80-plus years, now no longer works. And if the court doesn't accept that, then we can't cut down any trees to widen the driveway. The Lambs have to continue to rely on fire hydrants for firefighting, as we explained before, because they cannot install an IFC compliant turnaround on their land. You've acknowledged you can cross private property emergency situations as presented by a fire. The neighbors have told us they would have no objection to your doing so. The Lambs may be able to improve the driveway sufficiently for ambulance use, but not for the large fire trucks. They just can't install a turnaround big enough for the large fire trucks. In this situation, the local fire code has to go away to the Federal Fair Housing Act to set out in our appeal of December 2, 2024, and our presentation at the hearing of January 27, 2025. We all agree emergency access to this property is not up to current codes. The Lambs cannot make the fundamental changes you request for a fire truck turnaround at the end of the driveway, and may not be able to make the other requested changes, even though they can continue occupying the property without any changes at all. Mr. Mantels asked a rhetorical question at the last hearing, whether the house will be used for short-term rentals, given that it's owned by an LLC with that as an identified purpose. My client has confirmed to me it will not. It will be used by Culver and Karen from spring to fall. Their daughters and their husbands also will use it, as do their nieces and nephews. They do let some close friends use it, mostly without compensation, but some friends do give them a little something in return. That is why their Ohio attorney recommended they form an LLC for liability protection if their friends who give them a bottle of wine for using the cottage end up getting hurt, because then they've taken compensation and they could be liable, and since they know it's a fire trap, they don't want that liability. They have no plans to let it be used by people other than family and close friends, and like I said, they have no plans to start doing that in the future. As I mentioned before, our menu is limited. We have the bad. Lambs continue to use the unsafe fire trap currently on the property, or the better. They get to replace the existing fire trap with an 80-day accessible home of fire retardant materials with sprinkling up to current codes. What we don't have on the menu is perfect. That they replace the fire trap with a new safer home and replace the existing access with access being IFC and township requirements. They simply cannot do that. They've tried, they can't. When perfect is not available, the Federal Fair Housing Act requires local units of government to accept the better. A reasonable accommodation that allows a handicapped person to enjoy the property as others can. That is what we are seeking by requesting the Lambs be allowed to replace the existing fire trap with a safer home, even though we cannot bring the driveway up to current IFC and township requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Skipper? No? Okay. Fire code official, me, 5 minutes. Just kind of gave him 5, give or take.
Thank you, Board of Appeals, for your attention. There are many, many discrepancies with the proposal to place the burden of responding on us. And I don't feel that there's been anything that's been offered by the appellant that we could even consider. You've heard from the ambulance companies. You've heard they will not go in the driveway. I have evidence in writing from the zoning administrator that just occurred that township's gonna make them do the driveway. They have to. The trigger is when they replace a house, sure, can they use it? I'd have to say, let's just take a pause on this whole fire trap thing. I can prove legacy construction is far along longevity in a fire than lightweight construction. There is no such thing as fire-resistant rating in a single-family dwelling. It's drywall, confirmed in writing by the building official. So let's just get back to common sense approach, and that is we have enough information to say, please give us something better than what you're just saying, no, no, no. The zoning administrator says that ingress, egress can be improved. There's nothing that prevents that. This driveway ordinance is gonna go through them anyway, even when they rebuild. So where I'm going with this is, the very crux of our position is, the request by the appellant, by the Lambs, really undermines and conflicts with what the driveway requirement is for. We're trying to protect people. We're trying to have the preservation of life and property. This is distinctly contrary. Thank you.
And the only last thing I would like to add is I've had that drawing that you have in front of you for 5 minutes myself, but I was able to show that you could put the exact same scaled parking spot in 3-4 other locations. So I think if the architect wanted to fit the parking, the architect could fit the parking. That there's definitely a way. When there's a will, there's a way. I just think they're not trying to find a way. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other parties? Doesn't look like it. Discussion.
Well, I went to the township after the meeting on the 27th. I spoke with the zoning administrator, Renee Wells. She said there is a 30-foot easement.
Mr. Skippers, were you aware of that 30-foot easement?
I am. I explained why we can't widen the existing road. Just because the easement's 30 feet wide doesn't mean we can widen existing pavement. We can't clear it 30 feet wide.
And the zoning administrator said there's no reason why it can't meet the 20-foot requirement of the fire department. She also said if the house is torn down, then all the new ordinances and codes must be met by the builder. That's not only the IFC, it includes the IFC, but all setbacks, everything has to be met by the builder. It's unfortunate that this lot is only as big as it is, and the home that's on it right now is about 490 square feet, but that's what you have to work with. And it's unfortunate that the driveway is long and expensive, but codes are codes. And my feeling is you're in the wrong place. You need to be working with the township on some concessions that some zoning variances that they may have, but the IFC has to be met. That's how it is.
I don't think that's any surprise that once you tear something down, it's no longer grandfathered in, and you have to go by the
You have to start over.
current standards that
Right.
are passed. So, nice job going to get that information. Any comments, Mr. Skipper?
Yeah, you're right. If you tear something down, you have to meet the current codes. There are exceptions. One is variances. The zoning board of appeals grants variances all the time, because if they leave us unable to use
But,
that property.
Mr. Skipper, that is not
Oh, I
the
know,
Board
I know.
of Appeals here.
Well, I understand. The other is, as I've mentioned, the Fair Housing Act. That is a federal law, trumps the township zoning ordinance, and the federal law says, if it's reasonably necessary, you have to make an accommodation.
And again, I hate to interrupt you, but we are the Board of Appeals.
I know.
For the fire IFC. We have nothing to do with the Fair Housing Act. That's why I've been looking at this, spending a heck of a lot of time looking through this stuff, and I'm pretty frustrated because to me, what our job here is to look at your appeal. Does it meet what we think is necessarily a good appeal? And make a decision on that. After that, then it's the zoning and the Fair Housing Act and things like that.
Well, I will say, it's not clear to me that you don't have to follow the Fair Housing Act. And I say it's not clear because it's unusual to have a fire department separate from the township. And because of that, I don't want to say hiccup, because of that unusual situation here, we had to bring our appeal first to you before we go to the township.
And I understood, you did the proper
But I
channel.
do think legally, you are bound by the federal law as much as they are. I realize there's never been one you guys have had to tackle and grapple with, and I can't point to a single case where a fire district has been asked to do that because of the unusual situation we're in. I wish I could cite something to you, I know I can't.
Well, this is a statement I have for that. You pled that the Board of Appeals should consider the Federal Fair Housing Act when enforcing the current fire code. But as you plead that, for a safer environment for your clients inside the home, you totally disregard the liability of unsafe conditions of the home's entire property.
No, I
If your
understand that.
house is safe inside, and we can't get to it, and we can't fight a fire there, you can't get an ambulance in, you've made the home no safer than it ever was.
Well, one, as I said, we can improve the driveway to get an ambulance in and out. That's doable, because we don't have to widen it for that. It is not doable to make it for a fire truck. Now, you say, we're not making it safe. We're making it safer than it is. The existing house has that access. It's had that access for decades. As long as all of us have been alive, it's had that access.
That doesn't make it right.
It doesn't make it right, but it means it's been that way for 80 years, and none of us have the power to change that. I wish I did. But, I don't. And so all we can say is, a new house would be safer than continued occupancy in the existing house.
It won't
I
be
can't get
safe,
you
it won't
perfect.
be safer if we can't get a fire truck in there.
It's safer than what's there currently if you can't get fire trucks in. Right now, they don't have sprinkling, they don't have any fire retardant materials, and they can't even move around in that place. They would probably...
I don't think it's gonna be safe either way unless we get access into that. And number one, we can't think that we can go through neighbors' property to get there in case of a fire. So, I don't wanna get into it like that. Our job, I keep on bringing it up, is to look at what you appealed and make a decision on that. Once we make our decision on that, then you'll have to go through probably additional channels.
Yep.
But our job is just to look at the International Fire Code and did these gentlemen interpret it correctly?
Yeah, I think you understand our position, I think I understand your position, so...
I absolutely understand yours, you know, you're gonna be my neighbor down the road. And I wanna be a good neighbor, but, you know, we gotta go by the book.
Well, I don't want your house to burn down and 3 others along with it.
Exactly, so, what, we wanna close the meeting, or we got any other questions or comments?
Just one point of clarification, we're not asking the driveway to be cleared 30 feet. On the contrary, we did reasonable accommodation, we asked for 16 feet.
Right.
The ordinance is 20 feet, it's undisputable. The township gave us permission to go to 16 feet.
If the
We're all
house is
asking for
sprinkled.
16 feet, we're not asking for 30, 20. We tried to be in the spirit of cooperation, that's what we tried. So I just want to go on record saying, I just want to make sure. And according to the zoning administrator, it can be done. So,
And we gave concessions, but you gave no concessions to the fire code. You want it to be left like it is.
No, it's not true.
What concessions?
I said, we can improve it for ambulance access. We simply don't have room for a IFC compliant turnaround. I can't make the impossible possible. What we can make possible, we've said we will. But the neighbors have said we can't widen the driveway without going to court, and I don't know that we can win that court lawsuit.
Well, that's a civil matter, that's
Well,
not.
it's true, it's a reality, it's Michigan law. We have
I
to
guess
deal with
my
Michigan law.
question is, you have a 30-foot easement, you can't get a 16-foot driveway in that easement?
I don't think, we cannot widen the driveway without litigation with the neighbors. They've told us that.
I guess, you have in writing from Life EMS, they are not going to back down a 700 to 800 foot driveway with no turnaround. So where the width, go on, sorry.
Because we wouldn't need to, we can have an ambulance-sized turnaround on our property. Not for your big trucks, unfortunately.
The code is the code, we've modified it, you know our position.
Exactly. I think we know everyone's position here, and I think we ought to close the meeting and get to action by this board. So can I get a motion or a roll call vote to close the meeting?
Close the hearing.
Close the hearing, sorry.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Motion by LaPointe, second by North, roll call,
LaPointe,
Yes.
North,
Yes.
Beckman.
yes. Okay, action by the board.
Well, I have my answer to the question for the appellant. I believe that the fire board, or the fire, I'm sorry, not the board, fire department has met, the IFC to the letter of the law, including some concessions, and I really don't see where we can go from here. It's not our job to change the fire code, and fire code has been met. The house is being torn down, so everything, all ordinances have to be met. So you have to build a smaller house or whatever.
And what we'll do is get our answers to our attorney, and he'll, and he'll put it in writing, summarized, and get it to Mr. Skipper. Go ahead, if you have,
I agree with Jane. I don't think that we can overturn the fire code, so my vote would be no.
the nature of the appeal is that the provision of the code do not fully apply. We can go right down the list. The access road was denied, it wasn't approved, didn't meet the requirements. I agree with their, to deny, because it doesn't meet the code. Even in your outline, you mentioned that it's 700 and some feet, and it doesn't meet the code.
Correct.
Approval of driving surfaces, you even stated that it doesn't meet that. Dead-end driveway, you say you can't put one in. You know, max grade, I think that is not been...
Not an issue.
Not an issue. Address signage, I don't think we can do too much about that except recommend that you get a Blue Star address, and we're willing to give you signs there. And the road needs to be improved before construction. And I agree with that. I also, the second part of your appeal is an equivalent method of protection or safety is proposed. I put possibly. You've made some good points with your the Fair Housing Act, but the Board of Appeal is not authorized to waive the requirements of the IFC. So I deny that one, or I don't agree with that one. So it sounds to me like, you know, we don't approve, and we'll put it in writing for you, and probably have it in a week. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to schedule a special meeting to review the lawyer's letter and approve it, or?
Do we need to?
That was kinda how he said it last week, so
Yeah, I'm not
I was kinda
sure
unclear.
that we need to, he's just.
What I would do is,
Why?
before
Just
you
have-
schedule another special meeting, is let me get that clarified.
Yeah, because I would rather have him put it in writing.
Correct.
And then he can submit it to the board at our before our next meeting,
Yeah.
so we don't have to have Mr. Skipper
So
come
with your
again.
permission, I'll get that clarified.
And then at that time, we'll approve it as a Board of Appeals and forward it on.
Okay.
And that meeting will hopefully be in 2 weeks before, we'll just do a special meeting before the next board meeting.
Perfect.
Okay. Great. New business, none? Public comments? Board of Appeals members' comments? Thank you, Mr. Skippers, and we're adjourned.